They said I died a hero in Iraq, but I was standing right there, breathing, watching my only son raise a glass to my grave. The music was soft, the lights golden, and laughter filled the air while I stood at the edge of the garden, invisible to everyone who thought I no longer existed. My name was printed on a banner that read in loving memory, Captain James Weller, beneath a smiling photograph of a man I no longer recognized. I watched Evan, my son, dance with his bride. He looked peaceful, proud. The kind of man I once hoped to be before the war hollowed me out. 15 years ago, I walked away from my family, believing I was sparing them from the wreck I had become. But now, seeing this lie turned into a celebration, I realized I had not just left, I had been erased. A guest nearby whispered, "Such a tragedy, dying in service," and I felt the words slice through me like shrapnel. I turned away before my face betrayed the truth. Evan's eyes caught mine across the crowd for one brief second, recognition flickering before he turned to someone and said, "A family friend from the service." That moment hurt more than any bullet I ever faced. It was the silence of being buried alive by your own blood. Inside the hall, candles floated on glass bowls, and a projector played images of Evan's childhood. Then came a photo of me uniformed, young, smiling beside him. The screen faded to black. Gone, but never forgotten. Applause thundered. People clapped for a dead man who was standing only a few feet away. The bride, Lila, took the microphone. "Evan says his father taught him courage," she said softly. "He told me his dad died saving another soldier's life." Each word was a nail in my coffin. I stepped outside before the applause could bury me further. The night was still, heavy with lake air and the scent of burning candles. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, and wondered if maybe Evan needed a perfect father more than a broken one. But perfection built on lies always collapses. I remembered the night I left. Evan was 16, his voice shaking with rage as he said, "You came back, but you are not my father anymore." He was right. I came back from the war, but I was not the same man who left. I drank to sleep, yelled when silence scared me, and broke everything that tried to love me. Eventually, I packed a bag and walked away before I could destroy what was left. I sent letters. None came back. Over time, I stopped writing. Maybe he thought I was dead long before this wedding. A knock on the car window startled me. Lila stood outside, her white dress glowing under the parking lights. She held something small in her hand, my wallet. "You dropped this," she said. I thanked her, but she had already opened it, her eyes fixed on the military identification card inside. "James Weller, Sr.," she whispered. "You are his father." Her voice trembled, and for a second, she looked at me as if she were staring at an apparition. "He told me you died, saving someone in your unit," she said. I wanted to explain, to tell her I had tried to live after the war, but never quite managed. "Sometimes dying is easier than coming home," I said quietly. She hesitated, searching my face. Why would he lie? Maybe he was ashamed of me, I thought. Or maybe he wanted to protect her from the truth that his father was no hero, just a man who lost his way in his own home. Lila folded her arms. "You need to tell him you are alive." I shook my head. "He made peace with the version of me that died. I am not sure he wants the real one." "You do not get to decide that," she said firmly. She turned and walked back toward the hall, her dress whispering against the pavement. I followed her slowly, my heart pounding like artillery in my chest. The music from inside drifted out, a soft jazz tune, laughter, clinking glasses, a world built on a story that did not belong to me anymore. When we stepped into the hall, Evan turned. His face went pale, and the glass in his hand slipped, shattering against the floor. The room fell silent. "Evan," Lila said quietly, "your father is here." I took a step forward. "Hello, son." The words felt heavy, ancient. He stared at me as if he had seen a ghost rise from the ground. For a moment, no one spoke. Every breath, every heartbeat in that room seemed to stop. I saw truth in his eyes, fear, guilt, disbelief. He had not told this lie to hurt me. He had told it to survive me. And yet, the moment our eyes met, I knew the survival was over. Because once the dead return to the living, nothing stays buried for long. What none of us knew that night was how far the lie would reach, and how deep the wounds beneath it truly went. The wedding that buried me once had just become the war that would unearth us all. For a long time, no one moved. The wedding hall was silent except for the faint hum of the speakers still playing a song that no one remembered to stop. Evan's bride stood between us, her hands trembling, eyes wide as if she had summoned a ghost and now wished she had not. My son finally spoke, his voice thin and sharp. "This is not funny. I am not here to joke," I said quietly. But before I could say more, he turned to the guests and shouted, "Everyone, please give us a moment." The music died. Chairs scraped against the floor. The room emptied, leaving behind only the smell of wine, candles, and panic. Evan looked at me like a man watching his past rise out of the ground. "You should not have come," he said. "I was invited," I answered. "Your mother sent me the card." His face twisted. "Mom died 2 years ago," my heart stuttered. "What?" I whispered. The world tilted for a moment, and I felt that strange numbness soldiers get right before an explosion. I had not known. I had missed even her death. Lila stepped closer, confused. "You said your mother was alive," she said to Evan. "You told me she lived in Oregon." He swallowed hard, eyes darting between us. "I told you what I had to." His voice cracked. "You would not understand." She took a step back, and I saw her wedding ring catch the light like a warning. The lie had spread further than I imagined. It had built their whole marriage. I looked around the hall. The tables still glittered with untouched champagne, the remains of a celebration that had turned into a funeral of truth. "You told her I was dead," I said. "And you killed your mother in words too. Why, Evan?" He did not answer. His silence said everything that shame had eaten him alive. He finally whispered, "Because it was easier to love the version of you that died." The words hit like shrapnel. I felt something inside me collapse. "And what about you?" I asked. "Do you still believe you are that boy I left?" He looked away, his jaw clenched. "You do not get to ask me questions after disappearing for 15 years. His voice was shaking, but his anger was solid. "You left me to explain everything to everyone, and I got tired of making excuses. So I stopped explaining. The words were fair, and cruel, and true." I nodded slowly. "You are right. I left because I was broken. But you lied because you were afraid." We both ran away, just in different directions. His face softened, just a little, like a crack forming in frozen glass. For a second, I thought he might say something that could mend us. But instead, he whispered, "You need to go before I lose everything." "Everything?" I asked. "You mean her?" I looked at Lila, whose eyes were now filled with tears. She turned to him, her voice shaking. "You built our life on lies, Evan. How was I supposed to build a future on a grave?" He tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled away. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. I took a step back, ready to leave. But as I turned toward the door, Lila said softly, "Wait. If you leave now, he will keep lying forever." I looked at her, then at my son. His face was pale, his shoulders trembling. The boy who once hid behind me from thunder now looked like he wanted to hide from the truth itself. I could have walked out. It would have been easier. But something inside me refused. "No," I said. "Not this time." I walked back toward them both, the air thick with everything unsaid. "You do not get to bury me again, Evan. Not in front of her. Not in front of yourself." He turned sharply, eyes burning with something between anger and grief. "You think showing up here fixes anything? You think being alive makes you a father again?" I stared back at him, my voice low. "No, being honest does." Before either of us could speak again, one of the groomsmen burst through the door. "Evan," he said breathlessly. "The press is outside." Evan's eyes widened. "What?" "Someone posted online pictures of you and your dead father hugging. They are asking questions." Lila covered her mouth, shock and dread mixing on her face. Evan whispered, "Oh my God." I realized the truth was no longer ours to contain. The lie that once hid in silence had found its way into the light. Outside, I could already hear voices growing louder, reporters, guests, strangers who wanted to see the ghost. And as Evan stood frozen between the life he built and the truth he buried, I finally understood something terrifying. The war I had fought overseas was nothing compared to the one about to begin inside this family. Because shame does not stay buried, it always finds a way to rise. Flashes of light exploded as soon as I stepped outside. Reporters shouted my name, microphones stretched like rifles in a firing line. Someone yelled, "Captain Weller, how are you alive?" Another voice shouted, "Is this a publicity stunt?" The chaos was blinding. The lie had escaped the walls of the wedding hall and grown teeth. Evan shielded his face, pulling Lila close, whispering something I could not hear. The cameras turned toward them, capturing fear, confusion, guilt, all of it reflected in their eyes. I wanted to protect him, but I no longer knew from whom, the crowd or the truth. "Back up," I said, but my voice was swallowed by the noise. Every flash felt like a bullet I could not dodge. Police arrived within minutes, trying to push the crowd back. A reporter asked again, "Were you missing in action?" I wanted to say I had been missing from my own life, but I bit my tongue. "I was never dead," I said calmly, "just forgotten." My words spread through the crowd like fire. I saw phones recording, live streams starting, headlines already being written. Evan grabbed my arm and hissed, "You need to leave now." I pulled away. "Running will not stop this." His eyes narrowed. "You think staying helps? You will destroy everything." He turned toward Lila, but she was already walking away from him, tears streaking her makeup. She looked back once, at me, as if begging for something neither of us could give. Then she disappeared into a car that drove off without a word. The police escorted me to a corner of the parking lot. My hands were shaking, not from fear but from memory. I had seen mobs before, different uniforms, same noise. I stared at the water shimmering beyond the trees and thought about the desert heat, the endless sand, the years that vanished between then and now. The world had changed, but shame still spread faster than truth. Evan approached quietly, his face pale. "You do not know what you have done," he said. "You think this is about you, but it is about me." I looked at him. "It was always about you. Everything I did leaving, disappearing, it was supposed to protect you." He laughed bitterly. "Protect me? You abandoned me." The words hit hard because they were true. I wanted to tell him that war changes a man, that sometimes silence feels like mercy, but all I managed was, I was broken. He stepped closer, eyes wet. So was I. For the first time, there was no anger in his voice. Only exhaustion. "You left, and I built a life without you. But lies are heavy. They do not let you breathe." He looked toward the flashing lights. "Now everyone will know. The investors, my company, Lila's family, they will all think I am insane." I frowned. "Investors?" He hesitated. "I run a veteran outreach foundation. The story of my father's sacrifice was part of the brand." His voice cracked on the word brand. I felt the ground shift beneath me. My death had made him a success. My absence had become his asset. I stared at him, unable to speak. He looked away, ashamed. "The foundation raised millions," he whispered. "Scholarships, donations, government grants, all built around your name." I took a slow breath. "So when the truth comes out?" He did not answer. The silence told me everything. If I lived, his empire would die. The officers started dispersing the crowd, but the damage was done. I could see the red glow of cameras still recording from a distance. My son's wedding had become breaking news. Somewhere in the noise, I heard a woman shout, "He came back from the dead!" Another voice answered. Or maybe he never left. I looked at Evan one last time. "You built something good, even if it started wrong," I said. "But it is time to choose, keep the lie, or face the truth." He clenched his jaw, breathing hard. "If I tell the truth, I lose everything." I nodded slowly. "Then maybe losing everything is the only way to find yourself again." He turned away, walking toward the water, his reflection shaking on the surface like a shadow trying to escape its body. I wanted to follow, but I knew he needed space. For years, I had been the ghost haunting his life. Now, the truth was haunting both of us. When I finally drove away, the night sky was heavy with thunder. My phone buzzed non-stop unknown numbers, reporters, old friends, strangers who thought resurrection was a miracle. But I did not feel like a miracle. I felt like a mistake that refused to stay buried. At the red light, I looked in the rearview mirror. For the first time in 15 years, I saw my own eyes, clearly aged, weary, but alive. And in that mirror, a question formed that would not leave me. If shame divides a family, could truth still heal it? I did not know the answer yet, but I was about to find out. Because by morning, the whole country would know that Captain James Weller was not dead, and not everyone would be happy about it. By dawn, the story was everywhere. The dead soldier who walked into his son's wedding. Miracle or fraud? My name filled the news, my face flashed on morning screens I never thought I would see again. I had spent 15 years trying to disappear, and now the world was searching for me. I sat in a cheap motel near the highway. Curtains closed, television muted, phone buzzing with calls. I would not answer. The air smelled of old coffee and disinfectant. Every few minutes, I heard my name coming from the TV, even through the silence. I turned it off. Ghosts should not be giving interviews. Evan had not called. I told myself it was because he needed time, but deep down I knew he was busy trying to save what could not be saved. His foundation, his reputation, his carefully crafted myth, all of it balanced on my supposed death. I had become both his pride and his prison. When the knock came at the door, I expected a reporter, but it was Lila. Her eyes were red, her voice low. "He has not slept," she said. "He blames you for everything." I sighed. "He is right to blame me for some of it." She shook her head. "Not like this. He is scared. There is more you do not know." I gestured for her to sit. She hesitated, then stepped inside, clutching her purse like it held something dangerous. "Evans Foundation," she said. "It is not just about veterans. There is an investigation coming. Money went missing." My chest tightened. "Are you saying he stole it?" She looked away. "I am saying he hid it, somewhere only you could find." I frowned. "Me?" She nodded. "Your name is on the offshore account. The documents show Captain James Weller as the original trustee. He said it was a tribute fund, but now the IRS wants proof you existed." The room spun slightly. I had not just been erased from my son's life, he had used my absence as a mask. "I do not think he meant to do it at first," she continued. "It started small. A little money shifted, a few unrecorded donations, but when the story grew, the lie grew with it." Her voice broke. He kept saying, "If Dad were alive, he would understand." I wanted to believe that, but part of me knew it was guilt speaking through her. "Where is he now?" I asked. "At his office downtown," she said, "trying to clean up what cannot be cleaned." I grabbed my jacket. "Then I am going to him." She stood quickly. "James, wait. If you walk in there, everything will collapse." I met her eyes. It already has. The drive into the city was long and silent. Billboards flashed my photograph like I was a legend, reborn, but the truth behind it felt rotten. Every red light reflected my face in the windshield, and each reflection looked more like a stranger. When I reached Evan's office, reporters still waited outside. But the guards recognized me and let me through without a word. Inside, the place was chaos. Boxes of files, phones ringing, screens filled with headlines about scandal and fraud. I found Evan in his glass-walled office, pacing like a trapped soldier. He froze when he saw me. "You should not be here." I closed the door behind me. "We need to talk." He rubbed his face, exhausted. "You do not understand. They are going to take everything. They think I created fake accounts. I used your name because it made sense you were supposed to be dead." I stepped closer. "You built something good. Why taint it?" His eyes filled with tears. "Because good was not enough. The donors wanted a martyr, and I gave them one." I sat down, trying to breathe through the storm inside me. "You could have come to me." He laughed hollowly. "How? You vanished. You sent a letter every year with no return address. Do you know how it feels to grow up with an empty mailbox and a famous dead father?" There was nothing I could say. The truth had turned into a weapon neither of us could hold without bleeding. Finally, I whispered, "Let me take the blame. I will say I forged the records when I came back." He shook his head violently. "No. If you do that, they will arrest you, and I will have killed you twice." We stood in silence, the city humming below us. I could hear the sirens in the distance, ambulances, maybe reporters chasing the next scandal. Evan finally spoke. There is someone else involved. A man named Kramer. He handled the money transfers. He is threatening to expose everything unless I pay him. I clenched my fists. "How much?" $500,000, he said quietly. "Due by tomorrow." My stomach twisted. "Do you even have it?" He looked down. "No." The air between us grew colder. I remembered the battlefield, the feeling before dawn when you know an attack is coming but cannot see where from. That same tension filled the room. Evan whispered, "If this gets out, I go to prison." I stepped toward him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Then we face it together, but we face it honestly." He looked up, his eyes red, his voice almost a plea. "You still think truth can fix this?" I nodded slowly. "It is the only thing that ever could." He turned away, staring through the glass at the gray city below. "Kramer has files, recordings, proof. He said he would destroy them for cash. If I do not pay, he goes public." He exhaled, defeated. "And I think he already knows you are alive." The words hit me like a sniper shot. Someone was already one step ahead. For 15 years, I had been running from my past. Now, someone else was running straight toward it with my name in their hands. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. The storm was coming, and this time, there would be no place left to hide. That night, the rain came down like a punishment. I sat in my car outside Evan's building, watching water streak down the windshield as thunder rolled through the sky. Every flash of lightning turned the glass towers into mirrors, and I saw my face in each reflection, older, smaller, tired of being resurrected. Evan stayed inside long after everyone had left. I knew that look in his eyes, the same one soldiers had before they confessed something they could not undo. When he finally stepped out, his suit was soaked, his tie loose, his phone pressed to his ear. "Kramer," he muttered. I could barely hear the rest. "I will get it. Just give me one more day." I followed him at a distance as he drove through the city. He stopped at a bank, then another, each time leaving angrier than before. When he finally parked near the waterfront, I got out and walked toward him. The smell of rain mixed with gasoline. "You cannot buy silence forever," I said. He turned, startled, eyes dark under the streetlight. "Do not follow me, Dad." "Someone has to," I said. "Because you are walking straight into another war." He laughed bitterly. "War is what you left me, remember? I just learned how to fight differently." His voice cracked halfway through the sentence. He opened his briefcase and showed me cash bundles of it, rubber-banded, trembling in his hands. "This is what truth costs now." I stared at the money, speechless. "Where did you get it?" He hesitated. "A donor." His tone told me everything. It was not a donor, it was theft. "Evan," I said, "stop this before you drown." He shoved the case shut. "I am already underwater." Then he walked away, disappearing into the rain. I waited, watching the dark shape of my son vanish between the docks and warehouses. My instinct told me to chase him, but my body felt too heavy. Every mistake I had ever made was walking away with him. Lightning cracked again, and for a brief moment, I saw another figure near the end of the pier, a man smoking, waiting. Kramer. I moved closer, keeping low, just like old times. The wind howled across the bay, carrying pieces of their conversation. "It is all here," Evan said. "You keep your word." The man's reply was rough, mocking. "You think money erases evidence? I do not deal in forgiveness." Evan's voice rose. "Then what do you want?" The answer came sharp. "Insurance." A gun glinted in Kramer's hand. I stepped forward before I could think. "That is enough!" I shouted. The man spun around, startled, the cigarette dropping into a puddle. Well, he said. "The dead captain." Evan froze. "Dad, please go," Kramer smirked. "I should thank you. Your little resurrection made this whole thing worth double." I raised my hand slowly. "You want to walk away rich? Then take the money and leave." He laughed. "You really do not get it. The story sells better than silence. A hero back from the dead, a son stealing in his name, it is gold." The sound of rain hitting the metal pier drowned out my heartbeat. Evan lunged forward, trying to grab the briefcase, and everything exploded in noise. A shout, a flash, the metallic echo of a gunshot swallowed by thunder. I rushed forward as Kramer stumbled, dropping the weapon, his shoulder bleeding. Evan was shaking, staring at the gun in his hands. "He tried to," he whispered, voice breaking. I took the gun from him and tossed it into the bay. "We need to go." He stared at me, tears mixing with rain. "I did not mean to." I grabbed his face. "I know." We dragged Kramer to the car, still conscious but swearing through clenched teeth. "You will not get away with this," he spat. I looked at him. "Neither will you." We left him at the emergency entrance of a hospital. Alive, but too weak to move. The nurse ran out, shouting for help, and we drove away before anyone saw our faces. Evan's hands were trembling on the steering wheel. "What have I done?" he whispered. "You stopped someone from destroying you," I said. He shook his head. "No, I destroyed myself." By the time we reached the motel, the city had gone quiet again. I poured him a drink, coffee, not whiskey, and sat across from him. "Tomorrow, you go to the police," I said. "Tell them everything. The fraud, the blackmail, the shooting." He looked up at me, hollow-eyed. "If I do that, I will go to prison." I nodded. "Maybe, but at least you will walk in there alive." He stared at the cup, his reflection rippling in the dark liquid. "What about you?" he asked. "You were part of this now." I smiled sadly. "I have been part of worse." Silence filled the room again, heavy but strangely peaceful. For the first time, it felt like we were sitting not as strangers, but as two men who had both finally stopped running. Then the knock came at the door. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Evan froze. I stood, reached for the handle, and opened it. 2 police officers stood outside, rain dripping from their hats. One of them held a photograph of Kramer. "Captain Weller," he said, "we need you both to come with us. The man at the hospital just died." Evan's cup slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. The silence afterward was louder than thunder, and in that silence, I knew the war was far from over. The police lights painted the walls of the motel in red and blue. I could smell rain on their coats when they stepped inside. One of them spoke quietly, almost apologetic. The man you brought to the hospital, Kramer, did not make it through the night. Evan's shoulders sagged. He was alive when we left him, I said. The officer nodded. We just need your statements. We followed them out to the patrol car. Cameras flashed again, the press already waiting, like vultures circling something not yet dead. I felt Evan's body tense beside me. Every click of a shutter was another reminder that the world had turned our misery into spectacle. I wanted to shield him, but you cannot protect a man from his own truth. At the station, the fluorescent lights hummed like insects. We sat in separate rooms, each telling our version of the story. Mine was simple. Self-defense, a gun, a bad deal gone wrong. Evan's was longer, tangled with guilt and half-truths. Through the thin walls, I could hear his voice breaking. He tried to shoot, he said. It just happened fast. Hours later, an officer returned with paperwork. You are both free to go, he said, for now. Those two words hung heavy. Freedom felt temporary, like a borrowed breath. As we stepped outside, the sun was rising, pale and cold over the city. I had survived another night, but this time, it was not the kind of survival that felt like victory. Reporters were already waiting beyond the police line. One of them shouted, Captain Weller, did your son kill the man? Another yelled, Did you fake your death for money? I did not answer. Truth, once twisted, never straightens easily. I walked to the car and told Evan to drive. He did not speak the entire way back to the motel. When we arrived, I noticed an envelope wedged under the door. No name, just my old military unit's insignia drawn in ink. I tore it open. Inside was a single photograph, me and another soldier, standing in desert sand, smiling. On the back, a note in handwriting I would never forget. Some ghosts never stay buried, S. My heart stopped. Sergeant Samuel Hayes, my closest friend in the unit, the man I thought had died 15 years ago. I sat on the bed, the letter shaking in my hands. Who was it from? Evan asked. A man who should not be alive, I whispered. He frowned. Like you? I nodded slowly. Exactly like me. That night, I could not sleep. The photograph lay on the nightstand, glowing faintly under the lamp. Memories I had buried, resurfaced sandstorms, gunfire, a mission gone wrong, a radio signal that vanished with Samuel's last scream. We had both been listed as dead, but only one of us had stayed that way. At dawn, my phone rang. No number, no name. I answered anyway. You found the photo, a voice said. It was Samuel, older, rougher, but unmistakable. You are alive, I said quietly. He chuckled. Alive, yes. Free, not so much. He paused. You need to listen carefully. The man your son dealt with, Kramer, was not just a blackmailer. He was part of something larger. The Foundation's money went through channels I used years ago. My pulse quickened. Military channels? Private ones, he said. The kind that buy silence. You think Evan just got greedy? No. Someone wanted your name attached. They wanted the dead captain back on paper, not in flesh. His voice grew weaker. They know you are alive now. You have a week before they make sure you are not. The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, the world suddenly tilting again. Evan stared at me. Who was that? An old friend, I said, and a new problem. I looked out the window. Across the street, a black car sat idling, engine running, windows tinted. Dad, Evan whispered, following my gaze. Is someone watching us? The car's headlights flicked once, twice, then turned off. A message, a warning. I stood, heart pounding, realizing that Samuel was right. This was never just about fraud or family. Someone had used my death as a disguise for something far darker. And now that I had come back, they needed me gone again. Evan touched my arm. What do we do? I stared at the photo on the table, Samuel's faded smile beside mine, both of us ghosts tied to the same lie. We find him, I said, before they find us. Outside, the black car drove away slowly, disappearing into the fog. But I knew it would be back. Because the dead do not stay forgotten when the living start asking questions. The motel room felt smaller that night. The walls seemed to breathe. The shadows moved when they should not have. Evan sat by the window, staring at the street where the black car had been. He had not spoken in hours. I could feel his fear filling the air like smoke. I dialed every old contact I still remembered from my military days. Most numbers were dead. Others answered and hung up. One man, a former intelligence officer, only said, "If Hayes is reaching out, you are already in too deep." Then the line went dead. Evan turned toward me. "Dad, if this is about your past, I deserve to know. I looked at him. It is not just my past, it is ours now. He frowned, his jaw trembling. You keep saying they. Who are they? I exhaled. The kind of men who use war as currency. That night, I told him the truth. 15 years ago, Samuel and I had been sent on a mission that never officially existed. A convoy of humanitarian supplies heading through the desert, food, medicine, and something else hidden in the crates. We were ordered to guard it, not ask questions. But questions have a way of finding answers. Halfway through the route, the convoy was attacked. Not by the enemy, but by our own allies, mercenaries, hired by someone above us. Samuel tried to stop them. I tried to protect him. When the dust cleared, the convoy was gone, Samuel was presumed dead, and the report blamed insurgents. But I knew it was a cover-up. That was the day I stopped believing in clean wars. Evan listened in silence, his face pale. You think Kramer was connected to that? He asked. Kramer was small, I said. But whoever paid him wasn't. I pointed to the photograph on the table. Samuel knew something survived. Maybe a file. Maybe evidence. That is why he hid. Thunder shook the windows. Evan jumped. I turned off the light, motioning him to stay quiet. A pair of headlights had just turned into the parking lot. The same black car. 2 silhouettes inside. The engine stopped, but no one got out. I reached for the old service pistol I had kept since the war, loaded and waiting. We waited in silence for 10 minutes, then 20. The car never moved. Finally, I whispered, "Stay here." Evan grabbed my arm. "You are not going out there." "If they came for us, they already know where we are," I said. "Better I see them first than they see you." I slipped out through the back door, rain hitting my face, heart pounding in slow, steady beats. The car's headlights reflected in puddles like eyes watching. I moved closer, each step heavy with memory. When I reached the driver's side, I saw the window rolled halfway down. Inside was an envelope taped to the steering wheel. No driver, no sound, just that envelope. I tore it off carefully. On the front, written in block letters, were the words, "You have 72 hours. Stop digging." Inside was a single item, a dog tag. Samuel's. The one I had seen buried with him 15 years ago. I froze. My breath came shallow. Someone had dug him up, or never buried him at all. I turned around quickly, scanning the parking lot. Nothing but rain. I ran back inside, locking the door behind me. Evan stood up instantly. "What happened?" I handed him the dog tag. His mouth fell open. "Is that?" "Yes," I said. "Samuel Hayes." Evan looked at me like I had just brought a ghost into the room. 72 hours, I said. "That is how long we have." He stepped back. "To do what?" I stared out the window, watching the taillights of the car disappear into the storm. "To find the truth before it buries us again." That night neither of us slept. Every sound outside felt like footsteps. Every gust of wind felt like breath against the glass. I kept the pistol on the table, safety off. Evan sat against the wall, staring at the dog tag hanging between his fingers. "Dad," he whispered finally, "why do they want you dead again?" I looked at him, the answer heavier than any bullet. Because I am the only one left who remembers what really happened. Lightning flared through the window, illuminating the two of us, father and son, alive but hunted, tied together by a truth too dangerous to tell. And somewhere out there, the men who buried the past were digging again. At dawn, the rain stopped, but the silence it left behind was worse. Evan sat on the edge of the bed, the dog tag turning in his fingers like a coin that refused to land. His eyes were red. 72 hours, he said softly. "What happens after that?" I looked out the window. "Either we tell the truth or someone else writes it for us." We packed fast, no suitcase, no questions. The motel felt like a crime scene built out of secrets. I left the key on the counter and the clerk stared at me as if he knew. Maybe he did. Ghosts always leave traces. We drove toward the base where I had once served. The old gates still stood, rusted and silent, guarded by men half my age. I told the officer at the checkpoint my name. He blinked twice. "Captain Weller is dead." "Then consider this his resurrection," I said. He stepped aside, confused, unsure whether to salute or run. Inside, the base smelled of fuel and dust, exactly as I remembered. Memories hit like small explosions, Samuel's laughter, the radio static, the night of the convoy. We found the archives building a concrete bunker pretending to be forgotten. I used an old code that somehow still worked. The lock clicked open with a sigh, like it had been waiting for me. The files were yellowed and brittle. I searched through them while Evan stood guard. In one folder, I found what I feared. Mission logs rewritten, names erased, supply manifests replaced by numbers that meant nothing. All of it designed to hide what had been taken. Weapons, I whispered. They used humanitarian convoys to move weapons. Evan stared at me. And you were the last witness. I nodded slowly. That is why they needed me gone. I pulled another document from the folder, a payment ledger stamped with a private contractor's logo. The name at the bottom made my blood freeze. Kramer Logistics. Evan's voice trembled. He was part of it from the start. Yes, I said, and he never worked alone. I turned to the final page, an authorization signature approving every shipment. I traced the pen marks with my finger. It was Samuel's handwriting. The room spun. My oldest friend, the man I thought had died protecting the convoy, had signed off on the betrayal. Evan stepped closer. Maybe someone forged it. I shook my head. No, this is his. My chest felt tight, the years collapsing into one sharp point of realization. Samuel did not die in the desert. He changed sides. Before we could say more, a voice echoed from the hallway. You should have left it buried, James. I turned. Samuel Hayes stood there, older, thinner, eyes like cold steel. He stepped into the light, gun in hand. Evan froze. You are alive, I said. You sent the photo, Samuel smiled faintly, to warn you, but you never listened. He gestured toward the folder in my hand. Put it down. I stayed still. Why, Sam? His jaw tightened. Because the world runs on lies that keep it alive. You, of all people, should know that. Evan whispered, You framed my father. Samuel's gaze flicked to him. No, I saved him. Dead heroes are easier to protect than broken ones. His voice softened. You were supposed to stay gone, James. But you had to come back, and now they think I lost control. Who? I asked. He hesitated. The men who own what we moved. Contractors, politicians, ghosts with paychecks. They will clean this mess their way. He lowered the gun slightly. You have 48 hours before they erase us all. I took a step forward. Then help me stop them. Samuel's eyes flickered with something almost human. You cannot stop them. You can only choose how you die. He backed toward the door. Leave the file. Forget the past. I cannot, I said. Neither can my son. Samuel's expression hardened. Then you just killed him too. He turned and vanished down the corridor before I could move. Evan exhaled, shaking. Dad, what do we do? I looked at the file in my hands, the evidence of 15 years of deceit, the proof that men had traded lives for money and medals. We take this to someone who still believes in truth, I said. Outside, the wind picked up again, carrying the smell of rain and metal. We ran toward the car, the folder clutched to my chest. Behind us, alarms began to wail inside the base. Someone had triggered the silent system. As we reached the gate, floodlights blazed on, voices shouted orders. A guard raised his weapon. Stop where you are! I pressed the folder against Evan's chest. If they shoot, you run. Do not stop for me. He shook his head violently. I am not leaving you again. The loudspeaker boomed. Captain Weller, step away from the vehicle. I raised my hands. The folder slipped from my grasp, papers scattering in the wind like the ghosts of every secret I had buried. One page landed near my foot, Samuel's signature glowing under the spotlight. The guard hesitated, eyes uncertain, and in that moment of hesitation, a single shot cracked from somewhere in the dark. The glass beside me shattered. Evan screamed my name. Then, everything went black. When I opened my eyes, the world was white. The steady beep of a monitor pulsed beside me like a heartbeat I did not trust. My body felt heavy, wrapped in bandages, but my mind was clear enough to know one thing: I was still alive. Again, a nurse appeared, her voice calm but distant. You were lucky, she said. The bullet missed your heart by less than an inch. I tried to speak, but my throat felt dry. My son? I whispered. He is fine, she said. He has not left your side in 2 days. 2 days. I turned my head and saw Evan asleep in a chair near the window, his head resting on his arms. Sunlight poured through thin curtains, turning the dust in the air into tiny floating memories. For the first time in years, he looked like the boy I remembered, the one who used to wait at the door whenever I came home from deployment. When he woke, his eyes were red but relieved. You scared me, he said. His voice cracked. You keep doing that. I smiled weakly. It is a family habit. He laughed, then started crying. I let him. There are some silences only tears can fill. After a while, he told me what happened. The shot came from the perimeter, not the guards. The report said, unknown assailant. Samuel was gone, the folder missing. The base had locked down the entire area, claiming a security breach. The truth had disappeared again, this time inside bureaucracy. I lay there listening, guilt pressing on my chest harder than the bandages. "You should have left me," I said quietly. He shook his head. "No, you left enough for both of us already." His words hurt, but they were right. For years, I thought silence was strength. Now I saw it for what it really was, fear wearing discipline's mask. Later, that night, when Evan finally slept again, I stared at the ceiling and thought about the lies that built our lives. I had blamed myself for leaving. He had blamed me for everything that followed. But beneath all that anger was something simpler. Two men afraid to be seen as weak. Shame had made us enemies when it should have made us family. By morning, a detective came to the room. "Captain Weller," he said, flipping open a file, "you are free to leave once you are cleared by the doctors, but I would advise caution. Your name is in several open investigations now. Fraud, homicide, corruption. People are asking questions." I nodded. "Good, let them ask." He studied me for a moment, then leaned closer. "A woman called this morning. She said she has something that belongs to you." He handed me a note. It was written in neat handwriting. "Truth does not die. It only changes hands. Meet me where it began." There was no signature, only two letters. S.H. Samuel Hayes. The ghost who refused to rest. I knew where he meant. The old memorial park by the lake, the same place where Evan's wedding had buried me twice. My second funeral was about to become my second chance. When I stood up, my body ached, but my purpose felt clean for the first time in years. Evan watched me dress. "You are not healed," he said. "Neither are you," I replied. But that never stopped us before. He wanted to come, but I told him to wait. "If I do not come back," I said, "find Lila. Tell her everything. She deserves the truth." He nodded, trying not to cry again. Outside, the world smelled like spring rain and diesel. The hospital steps felt longer than any march I had ever taken. Every movement hurt, but pain was a kind of clarity. I could finally feel the weight of what I had survived. The park was empty when I arrived. The lake mirrored the gray sky, calm and still, as if it too were holding its breath. I stood near the bench where Evan and Lila had once posed for wedding photos. For a moment, I wondered if the universe had a cruel sense of humor, or if it simply liked symmetry. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Samuel walked out from behind the trees. No gun this time, only a small envelope in his hand. "You should have stayed dead," he said quietly. "You would have been safer." I smiled faintly. I stopped mistaking safety for peace a long time ago. He tossed the envelope onto the bench. "Inside is everything you need. The files, the names, the proof, but it will not fix anything. The system will eat it alive." I stepped closer. "Then at least it will choke on the truth." For the first time, he looked tired, not dangerous. "We did terrible things back then, James. Maybe we deserve what is coming." I met his eyes. "Maybe, but my son does not." He sighed, looked at the water, and said, "You have one more choice left to forgive yourself, or keep dying one memory at a time." Before I could answer, he turned and walked toward the path. "Where will you go?" I asked. "Where the dead belong," he said without looking back. I opened the envelope. Inside were printed documents, photographs, and one small flash drive labeled Convoy 9. My hands trembled as I held it. Proof of what happened 15 years ago, the mission, the cover-up, the reason my life had been rewritten as a lie. Behind me, the sound of a car engine roared to life. I turned, expecting Samuel. But it was not him. Two men stepped out, suits, dark glasses, the kind of quiet that screams danger. One of them said, "Captain Weller, you have something that belongs to us." I slipped the flash drive into my jacket pocket. "No," I said. "It belongs to the truth." The taller man smiled thinly. "Truth does not pay bills, Captain." Then I saw the gun in his hand, and for the third time in my life, I prepared to die for something worth living for. The lake was silent, except for the wind brushing against the water. The two men stood in front of me, their suits sharp, their eyes dull. One of them aimed his gun at my chest. "Hand it over," he said. The flash drive in my pocket felt like a heartbeat against my ribs. I raised my hand slowly. "You kill me here. You make noise. People will come." The taller one smiled. "Noise is what we are paid to clean." His finger tightened on the trigger. Then, behind him, a car engine roared. Headlights cut through the mist. The men turned. Evan's car came skidding down the hill, tires spraying mud. He stepped out shouting, "Get away from him!" Before I could stop him, he ran forward. One of the men turned his gun toward him, but I moved first. Years of training took over. I lunged, grabbing his arm, twisting it until the weapon dropped. The shot went wide, echoing across the lake. The taller man swung at me. I blocked, but pain shot through my injured side. Evan picked up the fallen gun, his hands shaking. "Drop it!" he yelled. The man hesitated, his eyes flicking between us. "You will not shoot," he said. Evan's voice cracked. "Try me." For a long second, the world stopped. Then a single word cut through the silence. "Enough." Samuel stepped out from behind a tree, hands raised. "Put the guns down," he said. The men froze. "Sir?" one of them asked. Samuel's expression was calm, almost resigned. "I told you to leave them. This is over." The taller man lowered his weapon reluctantly. "Orders changed," he said. "You are compromised." Samuel sighed. "Story of my life." Then he turned to me. "You have the drive?" I nodded. "Good. Then run." He stepped toward the men. "You want a scapegoat? Take me. I signed the papers. I kept the secrets. End it with me." They hesitated, uncertain. "Samuel," I said quietly, "do not do this." He looked at me, and for a moment I saw the friend I had lost 15 years ago. "We both died once," he said. "You still have someone to live for." The taller man raised his gun again. Samuel did not move. The shot rang out clean, final. Samuel fell without a sound, the water behind him rippling as if the lake itself mourned him. Evan shouted, running forward, but I grabbed him. "No!" My voice broke. "He chose this." The two men turned toward us again. "You have 1 minute," the taller one said. Then we finished what he started. I pulled Evan toward the car. He resisted. "We cannot just leave him." "He wanted this," I said. "If we stay, we die too." We dove into the car and sped away, the road twisting through fog and rain. I looked back once. The men stood over Samuel's body, small and dark against the water. We drove in silence for miles. Evan's knuckles were white on the wheel. Finally, he said, "He saved us." I nodded. "And he gave us what we need to end this." I pulled the flash drive from my pocket. "Convoy 9, I whispered. "Everything they buried." By dawn, we reached the city. I knew exactly where to go. An old journalist I had trusted years ago, a woman named Claire Donnelly, who had once risked her career to expose corruption in the Department of Defense. If anyone could make the truth impossible to bury, it was her. She met us in a cafe near the river. Her hair was gray now, her eyes sharp as ever. When she saw me, she stood, half in shock. "James Weller, I read your obituary twice." "Then this is the Resurrection edition," I said. She gestured for us to sit. "What have you brought me?" I slid the flash drive across the table. Names, contracts, proof that humanitarian convoys were used to move weapons and money across borders. Men died for it. My friend died for it. She looked at the drive for a long moment. "If this is real, it will bring down half of Washington." "It is real," I said. "But you need to release it fast. They are already hunting us." She nodded, her fingers trembling slightly as she pocketed the drive. "Give me 12 hours. We left through the back alley. The air smelled of rain and diesel again. Evan looked at me. "What if she gets killed for this?" I shook my head. "She knows the risks. Truth has its own armor." We spent the next hours hiding in an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town, listening to the radio. Every minute felt like an hour. I could not tell if the pounding in my chest was fear or hope. Then, just before midnight, the first headline hit the airwaves. "Whistleblower documents reveal massive defense cover-up. Evidence linked to Captain James Weller case." Evan let out a breath that sounded like release and grief all at once. "It is out," he whispered. I smiled, exhausted. "Then it is over, but I knew better." Minutes later, the lights outside the factory flared. Headlights, engines, doors slamming. Evan's face went pale. "They found us." I grabbed his arm. "Stay low." Voices echoed in the dark. "Captain Weller, step outside with your hands up." I looked around, realizing we were surrounded. There was no time, no exit. I turned to Evan. "You have to run." He shook his head violently. "I am not leaving you." I pressed my old dog tags into his hand. "You carry this now. If I do not make it, you keep the truth alive." Tears filled his eyes. "Dad, go!" I shouted. He slipped through the back as the front doors crashed open. Light flooded in, dozens of men, guns raised. I lifted my hands, breathing slowly. "You can shoot me," I said, "but the truth is already out." A man stepped forward, face cold as stone. "Then you die for it." He raised his gun. I closed my eyes, thinking of Evan, of Lila, of the boy who once believed his father had died a hero. For the first time, maybe he would be right. And when the gunfire came, I did not flinch. When I opened my eyes again, everything was quiet. The world was gray, the air thick with dust. I tasted metal and blood. I was lying on cold concrete, light flickering above me like a dying heartbeat. Somewhere far away, I could still hear the echo of gunfire fading into rain. I tried to move. Pain crawled up my ribs like fire. My hands were bound, my body bruised, but I was alive. Across from me, 2 men lay motionless. One of them, the shooter, his weapon just out of reach. A single thought cut through the haze. They had not finished the job. Footsteps approached. Heavy, deliberate. The door creaked open, and a silhouette filled the frame. It was Claire Donnelly. Her coat was wet, her eyes sharp. "You are harder to kill than I expected," she said. I tried to sit up. "The story, did it run?" She nodded. "Front page, every outlet. They cannot bury it now." I felt something unclench inside me. Then it was worth it. She walked closer, cutting the ropes around my wrists. "You have no idea how loud this got," she said. "They raided offices, froze accounts. Senators are denying everything. You just started a storm." I almost smiled. "Good." She shook her head. "Not for you. There is a warrant out: money laundering, obstruction, false identity. You are a headline and a scapegoat." I closed my eyes. So the system learned nothing. Claire leaned closer. Evan made it out. He came to me after the story broke. He gave a statement, told the truth about everything: the fake foundation, the blackmail, your disappearance. He said he will face whatever comes. I exhaled, a weight leaving my chest. He did what I never could. He stayed. For the first time in 15 years, I felt something like peace. But it was short-lived. Claire pulled an envelope from her coat and handed it to me. "Samuel Hayes left this for you. It arrived this morning at my office, no return address." Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten. "You did what I could not. They will come for you again, but not for long. Some truths destroy themselves once spoken. Be proud, brother. You finally lived. No signature. Only his initials, S.H. I folded the letter carefully. He knew how this would end. Claire nodded. "He bought you time. Now use it." She helped me to my feet. "You need to disappear again." I smiled faintly. "I have done enough disappearing." Outside, the rain had stopped. The city was waking up, unaware that its foundations had shifted overnight. Sirens wailed somewhere far off: justice in motion, or revenge pretending to be law. I walked beside Claire to her car. "Where is Evan?" I asked. "He is safe," she said, "but he wants to see you before you go." We drove to the edge of the city, to a small church that had survived more wars than either of us. Evan waited on the steps. No suit, no pretense, just a man stripped of everything but truth. When he saw me, he smiled, a real one, small and tired. He hugged me without a word. I felt his heartbeat against mine, steady and real. "They froze my accounts," he said. "The foundation is gone." "Then start something honest," I said. "You can still help people without lies." He nodded. Maybe that is what we both needed to stop being legends and just be people again. Inside the church, candles flickered. We sat in silence, 2 men trying to rebuild from ashes. "What happens now?" he asked. I looked at the altar. "We live, one day at a time. We forgive ourselves, or we never move forward." He leaned back, eyes glistening. "I thought I lost you twice." "You never did," I said. "You just believed the stories that made it easier." Outside, the first light of morning broke through the clouds, touching the cracked windows with gold. It felt like a small mercy, the kind that asks for nothing but presence. I stood, ready to leave. "They will still come for me," I said. "Then I will go with you," he replied. I shook my head. "No. Someone has to stay and rebuild what we destroyed." He smiled sadly. "Then promise me you will not vanish again." I hesitated, then said, "No more ghosts." As I stepped out into the light, I saw reporters gathering down the street, cameras ready, voices rising. Claire whispered, "If you walk toward them, they will turn you into another story." I nodded. Maybe it is time they heard it from me. Evan grabbed my arm. "Dad, do not." I looked at him, at the man he had become through pain, love, and truth. "You once said I died a hero," I told him. "Maybe this time I can live as one." He tried to stop me, but I walked forward. The crowd turned, microphones raised, questions flew like arrows about the leaks, the deaths, the lies. I spoke the only words that mattered. The truth is not perfect. It is painful, it is ugly, but it is the only thing that keeps us human. Cameras flashed. Sirens wailed. And in that chaos, I felt something I had not felt in decades. Redemption. Not through war or medals or sacrifice, but through honesty. As officers approached, I saw Evan watching from the church steps, his face lifted toward the morning Sunday. For the first time, I saw pride in his eyes, not for the soldier I was, but for the man I had become. The cuffs closed around my wrists, cold but clean. I lifted my head high. The reporter shouted, the cameras blinked, and I said quietly to myself, "Shame divides families, but truth heals them." Then the officers led me away, and the world finally felt honest again. But somewhere in the distance, above the sound of sirens, a phone rang inside Claire's coat, an unknown number flashing 3 words on the screen, Convoy 9 recovered. And just like that, I realized the story was not over yet. I served 15 years in the military and another 15 hiding from myself. But nothing prepares you for the silence after the storm. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined. The light through the windows was soft, forgiving, the kind that does not care who is guilty. The judge read my name slowly, as if summoning me from 2 different graves. The charges were heavy: fraud, obstruction, accessory, but the evidence told another story. The files Claire released had triggered an avalanche. Dozens of officials were under investigation, contracts frozen, names erased from marble walls. My part in it had already become legend, the soldier who came back from the dead to expose the living. I pled guilty to falsifying identity and withholding information. 6 months in federal custody, with time served. I did not argue. For a man who had carried invisible chains for decades, 6 months of truth felt like freedom. Evan came to visit every week. He brought books, letters from veterans who said the Foundation's story had inspired them to live honestly again. "Even the broken ones are trying to rebuild," he said once. I told him that was how it always begins, with the smallest piece of truth someone is brave enough to carry. Claire's articles shook the Capitol for months. Convoy 9 became a synonym for the cost of secrecy. She called me once from an undisclosed number. "You started something? You cannot stop," she said. I smiled. Good, maybe the next generation will finish it better. Samuel's name was added to the official record of those lost in the mission, this time with the truth beside it. Kia in Classified Operation 2010. No lies, no glory, just facts and grief side by side, the way it should be. When I walked out of prison, the world felt quiet again. The air tasted new, like rain after dust. Evan waited for me at the gate, wearing a worn jacket and the dog tags I had given him. He hugged me tight, no words, no guilt left between us. We drove home with the windows down, letting the wind erase the years. At the house, I found an envelope waiting by the door. No return address, only 3 words written in Samuel's hand. "You did it." Inside was his old photograph, the one from the desert. But this time the back carried something new. "Forgive yourself." That night, I sat by the lake, where it all began. The same place where my son buried me in stories and where I chose to live again. The water was still, the sky full of quiet stars. I thought about every life I had touched, every lie I had carried, and every truth I had finally spoken. People think redemption comes with applause. It does not. It comes with silence, the kind that lets you breathe without pretending. I realized I would never be the hero my son once imagined. I did not need to be. I just needed to be honest. Evan sat beside me, skipping a stone across the water. "Do you ever wish things turned out differently?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, we would have missed the lesson." He smiled faintly. "And what lesson is that?" I looked at the reflection of our faces in the water, 2 men, flawed but whole. "That shame divides families," I said softly, "but truth heals them." He nodded, eyes glistening, and threw another stone. It skipped 7 times before sinking, small circles rippling outward until the lake was calm again. The world moved on. The headlines faded. But sometimes, when the wind hits the water just right, I still hear Samuel's voice in the echo. "You finally lived." And maybe that is what truth really is. Not perfection, not victory, just the courage to stay alive inside the pain. If you've listened this far, type 1" the comments, so I know you are still here with me. Be kind to yourselves. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it heals too.